Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. Joe Samaniego here, along with Adam Lemeries, Ben Schneider, and Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Definitely want to give a big special thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark and Robin, for contributing each and every month, link in the video description, and Amber Zachary last week for their contribution. Get your name on here, contribute to the Grid Network. Before we get into the racing action, just a quick update about the Motorsport's response to the Ukraine-Russian war. NASCAR today, pre-race prayer, asked for peace in the Ukraine. We saw the same in the IndyCar Series, but the big one, of course, in World Rally Championship. Kalle Rovanpera said, "I didn't feel like celebrating. Too much now. It has been a real difficult week for the people in Ukraine. I just want to really hope they have the strength and hope in these difficult times." Everyone, of course, about the situation in Ukraine. We're all thinking about them as well. And of course, one of the big things, motorsports, it always seems to be the avenue where we could help ourselves get away from some of these stressful situations. It's good that we're recognizing it, but we got to recognize in the IndyCar series, we got a first time winner today.
Had a first time winner in the NTT INDYCAR Series. Season kicked off with the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg in Florida. Scott McLaughlin, that first time winner, first career IndyCar victory, overcoming getting held up late by Jimmy Johnson and rookie Devlin DeFrancesco in the final laps. Alex Palou, he mounted a late race charge, but he just didn't have anything for McLaughlin. And it's starting with you, Adam. Were you surprised by how much control McLaughlin had over the competition today?
Oh yeah, I'm surprised. It's for those of you who don't know, it was McLaughlin's third time here on the streets of St. Petersburg. He came over in 2020 when it was the last race of the season, and he competed last 2 years full time. So pretty cool to see former Repco Supercars champion, a Bathurst 1000 champion, come over here to the United States, and you know, his family was watching in New Zealand, where he's from, and I hasn't seen his family for a long time. So, and from what I saw on social media, a lot of the Repco supercar drivers he used to compete with were very happy for him, and I was surprised to see Scott McLaughlin really dominate today. And also, Alex Palou drove an incredible race. I truly thought he was going to pass Scott McLaughlin, at least on the white flag lap, to take the win. I'll say this. Scott McLaughlin is not done winning just yet. If you remember last year when the IndyCar Series went to Texas, one of the two races, Scott finished second. Could we see Scott McLaughlin go back to back next time IndyCars go to the Lone Star State? Could happen.
I can't say I'm surprised at all. I was surprised, I guess, a little bit at how well McLaughlin was able to defend against Palou at the very end there. But we saw how quickly Scott McLaughlin picked up the IndyCar Series last year. Hardly a surprise to see him pick up right where he left off to take a win from pole position today. Just speaks to the amount of talent he has and how quickly he's been able to adapt to a car that's completely different from what he's used to racing in supercars down under in Australia. So for Scott McLaughlin, I can't say I'm shocked at all. It was hardly a surprise to see him perform as well as he did. But I did think Palou was probably going to have a shot to at least make it a little bit more interesting than he did. Obviously, Palou was closing at the end there, and we got a good battle for the win. But McLaughlin, from his perspective, it was never really in doubt. And a phenomenal race that he drove today. So all congratulations to him and Team Penske.
This goes to show that Scott McLaughlin has learned so much since he made his IndyCar debut at the very end of 2020 after winning that Bathurst 1000 with DJR Team Penske down there in Australia. And I remember his very first race. He, to be honest, not totally unexpected. He looked kind of lost. Just getting a feel for the car since he had a lot of limited open wheel experience. And before the pandemic in early 2020, they had that test at Circuit of the Americas, and Scott McLaughlin shocked a lot of people. He was one of the fastest drivers there with very little open wheel experience. And because of the pandemic, he didn't get to run some of the races he wanted to run because Team Penske was going to run him in select races in 2020 while he was running full time in supercars. But that didn't happen. So as soon as he won Bathurst, he got on a plane, came over to St. Pete, which was the season finale in 2020, and he actually ended up not finishing that race and ran towards the back for most of it. And last year was a big learning experience for Scott McLaughlin, and now second full season in the IndyCar Series. I believe he's going to apply all that he's learned, and I think he's going to contend for multiple wins throughout the season. And as I said last year, I think Scott McLaughlin's going to be an IndyCar champion one day, and that would be quite a feat. Imagine winning an IndyCar championship and 3 Repco Supercars championships as well. And McLaughlin, he led most of the race, only losing the lead during pit stops. Only one caution for David Malukas hitting the wall on lap 25. Still had a lot of racing and some big gainers today, such as Alex Palou coming from 10th to 2nd, Graham Rahal 11th to 7th, Takuma Sato 22nd to 10th. And starting with you this time, Ben, did you expect the vast majority of the race to be green flag action?
I wouldn't say I expected it. I can't say I'm surprised either. I feel like in recent years in the IndyCar Series, we've been seeing a lot more races go green for the vast majority of the race, if not the entire race, particularly on the road courses. But St. Pete is a straight circuit, where it's a lot tighter in certain sections. It's inevitable that you're going to see 1 or 2 guys go into the wall at some point, and that usually brings out a full course caution at some point during the race. And we did see it once today. But to only see one of them, first race back, you would think, somebody's going to have nerves get the better of them, go into the wall. Somebody's going to overdrive the first corner on a restart. We've seen that the last couple of times we've been to St. Pete. So, I feel like, it's one of those things. Am I shocked? No. Wasn't necessarily expecting it, though, either.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Ben. I wasn't expecting it either. I'll give you guys, let our viewers know some trivia. The first time Scott McLaughlin won in the Repco Supercars Championship, who was calling the race? Lee Diffie. It was at his home. It was in his home country in New Zealand at a track called Pukekohe Park. Lee Diffie used to do the supercar races for Network 10 in Australia, where he's from. And actually, I was surprised. I was surprised that the majority of the race was green flag running. But I gotta say, that Kiwi has learned a lot, and I'm really happy for him, Team Penske, and a shout out to our colleague Joshua Birch as well. Last week, he called Austin Cindrix to win the Daytona 500, his first career win. This week, Scott McLaughlin, first career IndyCar win. So, pretty cool what Josh has done the last couple weeks, calling 2 first-time winners back-to-back. Could we see it 3 times in a row next week from MotoGP? Well, subscribe to his YouTube channel and find out.
And I want to share a quick Scott McLaughlin story I read today from Nathan Brown, who's a journalist for the Indy Star. Apparently, Scott McLaughlin's rookie season in IndyCar was very mentally draining, and forced him to alter all of the expectations that he has. And in the article, it said that Scott McLaughlin has never been a loser at any level of racing, and it was a big risk coming here to the States after all of his success in supercars. He could have just stayed in supercars and become the greatest of all time down under. But no, he accomplished everything that pretty much there is to accomplish in supercars competition. He wanted something else. He wanted to race in the States, come to IndyCar, and become one of the top drivers and compete for race wins and championships in the NTT INDYCAR Series. But last season, being a rookie, a lot of growing pains, and it really took a toll on Scott because he's not used to, figuring things out and not being one of the guys out there who's going to win every single week. So I thought that was a really interesting story that Nathan Brown wrote about McLaughlin, being this highly successful supercars driver who has high expectations of himself, and then come to IndyCar and you're no longer the face of the series, the big dog like you were down under. So I feel like last season will be a good character building year for Scott McLaughlin, and he's gonna translate that into big time results this year. And like you said, Adam, I don't think he's done winning all. I think he's gonna win multiple races this year. Will he be a champion? Will he be a championship contender this year in IndyCar? I don't I don't know yet. Might be a little too soon to say, but I do think he'll certainly be a contender to finish in the top 10 in the point standings. And some of the drivers who may leave St. Pete disappointed, Pato O'Ward, 12th, one of the championship contenders from last year. Another contender, Joseph Newgarden, nowhere today, finished 16th. And Alexander Rossi, at one point looked like might be on a good strategy, but it all went wrong for Rossi, and he finished a disappointing 20th. And last year, we opened up the season at Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama. We had that big crash on the opening lap, and everyone was dependent on others around them having bad races for a chance to catch up. And with drivers like McLaughlin, Alex Palou, Colton Herta, Roman Grosjean, and Scott Dixon and others finishing inside the top 10 today, will it be more difficult for drivers towards the bottom to catch up compared to last year?
Yeah, I think it will be. Alexander Rossi had a horrible year last year. I know he wants to forget that, and I thought, he would have a lot of, I thought he would have, some good momentum going into this race. It's a fresh new season, first race of the year, and he started off in 20th. Pato O'Ward, he was battling Alex Palou all year last year for the IndyCar Championship and finished second. I'm surprised where he finished. Joseph Newgarden for Team Penske. I thought he would have had at least a top 10 finish, but it's only one race the season. It's only one race, the season has a long way to go, but I expect to see Pato O'Ward, Joseph Newgarden, and Alexander Rossi contending for wins, top fives, and top tens the rest of the year.
Well, Adam said it perfectly. It's only one race and it's the first race of the year. So I think, it's not like the points have been changed year to year. I think there's really not much of a difference. You can compare it to last year. Obviously, the talent in the IndyCar Series is absolutely stacked. There's so many great drivers. So it's inevitable that you're going to get a couple that have a bad first race or a bad first couple of races that are towards the bottom that now have a hole they have to climb out of. Alexander Rossi in particular. I mean, what happened to this guy? He was winning races and looking like a championship contender in 2018, 2019, and the last few years just, has not been on that level. So if you're somebody like him, absolutely, you have to go to Texas and rebound right away. Other drivers as well, Joseph Newgarden, certainly not the day he wanted, finishing in 16th, I believe it was. So, he's got some work to do as well. But if you're going to have a bad race, this is the best time of the year to have it, because the hole that you have to climb out of at the bottom of the standings, which is basically your spot in the standings, is where you finish today for the most part. It's certainly not impossible with how many races we have left.
Yeah, definitely not impossible to climb out of an early season hole. And like you were saying, yeah, you're going to have a couple of bad races every season. It's a given. It's almost virtually impossible for you to have a mistake-free season where you're going to finish well every single event. So maybe 1, 2, 3, even 4 bad races. It's just going to happen. But I'd rather be on the other side than a driver who's trying to catch up and dig myself out of a hole, because then there's more pressure on you later this season. Be like, I got to keep getting podium after podium to get back in the championship hunt. What instead of being a driver who's strung together, let's say 4 or 5 straight podium finishes, and then you can afford to have several bad races. Yeah, so I definitely rather be on that side than the other. And the next race next month, March 20th at Texas Motor Speedway. Alex Palou started with the points lead last year. This time second in points, so no major difference for him. Colton Herta and Andretti Autosport looked good early in the race, but they seem to fall flat late. Can Andretti Autosport rebound at Texas?
If you don't mind, let me bring the results back up here, and you can see 2 Andretti drivers finished in the top 5 today. So from that perspective, I guess you could say they don't really have to rebound that much because they both had good runs today. The ones that need to rebound are Rossi and drivers further down at the back of the pack there, like we were talking about with Newgarden, as well as DeFrancesco here, the Andretti rookie. So, in his situation, going to Texas Motor Speedway for the first time, I got to think that's a pretty intimidating track for a young driver. I don't have too much confidence in his ability to go out and run in the top 5 like Herta and Grosjean did today. I'm not saying his race is all doom and gloom from the start, but I think it's going to be challenging for him to be up there in that position. Rossi, like we were just talking about, for his championship and for his momentum and morale based on how his last couple of seasons have gone, absolutely he needs to rebound. If anything, from Grosjean's perspective, he's still very new to the ovals. I'd be surprised, pleasantly surprised. I wouldn't put it past him with how strong he looked at Gateway last year in particular. He could run in the top 5, top 10 again, but I'm not expecting that out of him. So Colton Herta is really the only one that I think, you could say is probably going to be a contender for the win for Andretti next race out in Texas. And he had a very good race today anyway. So I think from Andretti's perspective, the one guy that is most likely to rebound for the team already had a good race today. So from a momentum perspective, I guess there's your answer on that. Let's see, we have a comment here from Robert Smith. He knew that Penske was interested in taking him to the U.S. I guess this is about Scott McLaughlin here, but he and most people in Oz thought it would be NASCAR, but Mr. Penske had something else in mind. Well, maybe if Scott keeps this up, maybe a NASCAR road course one-off is in his future. We'll see what happens there. I know Will Power's been talking about that for a while, and even though he's won a championship and an Indy 500, we still haven't gotten that yet. So it's probably going to be a little while, but that would be entertaining to see for sure.
Yeah, I think Andretti Autosport will rebound at Texas. Like you were saying, you had 2 other top cars finish in the top 10 today. In Texas Motor Speedway is a 1.5 mile oval. Colton Herta certainly, he could run strong. Romain Grosjean is it's going to be interesting to see how he does at Texas Motor Speedway. But to me, I think Andretti Autosport will do good at Texas Motor Speedway in March.
And next, here's Matt White to kick off the World Rally Championship Rally Sweden wrap-up.
Hi everyone, Matt White here to bring you a post-race wrap-up from WRC in Sweden. It finished this afternoon with Kalle Rovanpera winning for Toyota, his 3rd World Rally Championship victory after taking 2 wins last season. It puts him top of the championship. He's 14 points ahead of the man that finished 2nd in the rally. That's Thierry Neuville. Rovanpera's win 22 seconds in the end as well after the power stage, in which he also clinched a hatful of points as well. Esa-Pekka Lappi finishing 3rd on the podium for Toyota, so 2 Toyotas with a Hyundai in 2nd. Lappi's first start of the year, of course, he stepped out for Sébastien Ogier in Monte Carlo. There was drama in the early hours of the morning on the final day when Elfyn Evans' car ended up in a snowbank, and then damage resulting caused him to retire on the final day. So a big hit in the championship for Evans, with his junior teammate winning the event. Behind the top 3, Takamoto Katsuta finishing 4th again in a Toyota. Top 4 was Gus Greensmith in 5th, ahead of Oliver Solberg, who'd shown some speed throughout the weekend, but some dramas late on Saturday forced him back and he finishes 6th. Andreas Mikkelsen finished 7th to win WRC 2, his 2nd victory in that category in the first 2 rounds of the season. But he had a great fight with fellow Norwegian Ole Christian Veiby, who finishes just behind him in 8th position. 2 more WRC 2 cars rounded out the top 10. Jari Huttunen at the wheel of a Ford, and Igor Cowan in 10th position, the Estonian. So that is WRC Rally Sweden done and dusted. Rovanpera tops the championship. Toyota top the Manufacturers' Championship. And an early sign for the grid ranking, which is still a long way away from coming out, but the very early stages, Kalle Rovanpera is top of that standing as well. We head to Croatia in April for the next round of WRC. We'll bring you all of the news and updates on that rally at the time, and any more breaking news we'll have for you here on the Grid Network.
Big thank you to Matt for that update. And of course, as he mentioned, World Rally Championship, Kalle Rovanpera took the lead. One of the things he didn't mention, at the end of yesterday, it was a Toyota 1, 2, 3, 4, but with Elfyn Evans having the bad luck, Thierry Neuville getting that second place, it broke up. And Adam, I gotta say, this was a very exciting race at Rally Sweden. And Kalle Rovanpera looked good all weekend. He was your pick a winner pick. How big is it to win Rally Sweden? And now he leads the points, second time in 2 years.
Well, I think this is strong. I think, I gotta say, I believe Kalle Rovanpera's father won this race as well, when he was competing. So it's really good to see Kalle Rovanpera take the win in Rally Sweden. And this year, he doesn't have to contend with both Sebastians all season long. So I think Kalle Rovanpera is a strong contender for the WRC championship. I know the season is still early. We have Rally Croatia coming up next, but Kalle Rovanpera to me is going to be strong all season long. So I don't think he's done winning in WRC.
After what I saw today and all weekend, I think he does look strong. The big thing, don't do what he did last year when he had the points lead coming off a win. He then put it in the ditch in stage one, less than 5 minutes into the entire weekend, and he was in the ditch and out the race, lost the points lead. He just never seemed to be 100% last year afterwards. Of course, you had OJ in that same team and Elfyn Evans just on another level. If he could continue this, he is going to be up there all season long. Elfyn Evans, especially after he fell behind, it seemed like he was really pushing just too hard, and then to have the two offs late yesterday and then today where he was done for, just absolutely ruined his race. And Tanak, boys, talk about a ruined race. Saturday, just bad luck again, mechanical issues with that Hyundai. Today, he got the power stage win, so 5 points, and it's crazy. That's his first 5 points of the entire season. So he's not even in the top 10 yet. He is 41 points behind the leader. So really, it looks like he's going to need some bad luck from the others. Do you believe Tanak and Hyundai have the potential to catch up to Rovanpera and those Toyotas?
I do. Like I just mentioned, the season, it's only round 2. There's still many more races to go. Tanak, he'll be a contender. Will he win? I believe so. So it's going to be interesting. I think Tanak. I'm surprised. I'm surprised so far with his poor start, only having 5 points. Really talented rally driver. So high spec Tanak. To rebound after what we saw in Monte Carlo and now here in Sweden. Too tough of a driver, to be outside the top 10. He'll rebound. I think he will rebound when we get to Croatia.
I anticipate Croatia will be a good point for him to start turning his season around. He's really going to have to step it up. Thierry Neuville proved you could run with the Toyotas. I feel the Hyundais, they definitely looked a little bit better than the Fords all weekend. So I anticipate on Tanak, he is going to be back up there fighting for the wins and hopefully a shot at the championship. The big thing with him is just getting those finishes. Last year, it just seemed he was also plagued with bad blood every other race. Cannot have that for a third race in a row in Croatia. I feel if he has a third race in a row with 5 points or less, it looks really, really slim because World Rally Championship has one of the shortest seasons when it comes to the Grid Rankin Series, and will be coming down before you know it to 10 to go, 9 to go, 8 to go. And you don't know if an event will be canceled or rescheduled for another time. So I think Rally Croatia is a big moment for him to get going. Of course, Rally Croatia, that'll be April 21st, World Rally Championship. They have 2 races done already, much more to go. And of course, we're just getting closer to the grid ranking scoring because they got their 2 races done. And another series, they got their 2 races done. NASCAR Cup Series was a thrilling Auto Club Speedway race.
Yeah, Joe, it was quite a race, quite a show. This race had everything, and I'll say for the first time in years, this was the first time there wasn't a point of the race where I did not lose the race. Like my attention span, I was able to pay attention to the entire race and not drift off into La La Land or something like that because it kept my eyes glued to the screen the entire way. NASCAR Cup Series back out in California, the Auto Club Speedway. And they had a really nice, decent sized crowd in Fontana today. Kyle Larson battled Joey Logano and Daniel Suarez up front within the final 5 laps and held off a challenge to the finish line from Austin Dillon to claim his first win of 2022. So it's definitely game on for the defending Cup Series champion trying to go back to back. But everyone is talking about the contact between Hendrick Motorsports teammates Larson and Chase Elliott fighting Joey Logano for the lead. Elliott was on the outside. Larson came up the track and shoved Elliott into the wall, but Chase ended up getting the worst end of the deal. Bad finish, spinning out that gave the Phil another shot at Larson at the end, and people online were speculating, wondering about his spin if Chase Elliott did it intentionally to get back at Larson for ruining his day. And Larson's locked in the playoffs now. Is he the top driver at Hendrick Motorsports, and do you expect the drama between him and Chase Elliott to get resolved fairly soon?
I'm hesitant to say he is because I know what Chase Elliott can do. But you see on the graphic right there, I think it's actually 5 of the last 7 because I think he won 4 of the last 5 last year, and Cindric won Daytona this year. Now Larson wins again. But regardless, it's still an incredible stretch of races that he's put together. And Kyle Larson winning 10 races last year, coming off of a championship, picking up right where he left off. He's actually ahead of where he was last year, getting a win this early in the season. I think it's safe to say that at this moment in time right now, he is certainly the face of Hendrick Motorsports, and Chase Elliott has a little bit of catching up to do. In terms of the contact we saw today, I don't know that we're at a point where we can call Elliott and Larson sworn enemies yet. You have to remember they are teammates. They're going into a competition meeting tomorrow or early this upcoming week. They're going to talk it out. I think things will be fine. It is important to remember, though, when Jimmy Johnson was winning his championships, there were some times where Jeff Gordon and him butt heads a little bit. And, Gordon was even a co-owner on that 48 car. So that made for a little bit of an interesting relationship for a couple of years. But, ultimately, I think Kyle and Chase get along well enough off the track. I haven't seen anything to make me think that this is going to be a long-standing problem like, a Lewis Hamilton or Nico Rosberg situation in Mercedes. I think we're way too early to be going that far in terms of their relationship. So I think it's going to be something that, Chase will calm down a little bit. Obviously, he was frustrated today and justifiably so, having his race taken away from him. But, I'm sure Kyle meant no ill intentions. It was just a rare error from the defending Cup Series champion, and those things happen sometimes.
Gotta give props to Kobe Lambeth. He picked Kyle Larson to win today, and I think he's on top of the pick of winner standings. Yeah, I was tied with him going, and I believe our colleague Brent Schneider also picked Kyle Larson. So now Kobe's on top, and Ben and I are tied for second. But I gotta say, this was a pretty awesome race to watch all around. Kyle Larson was there. He started in the back, and he worked his way up. And Kyle Larson, he still continues to amaze me. I didn't think he had a chance today, but he was there at the right time, and he won in his home state of California. I believe now that makes Kyle Larson now locked into the playoffs. And what we saw between Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, I don't think Kyle meant to do it. I think Kyle apologized on the radio. So I think this will get resolved. And, is it going to be a robbery? No. Those two will talk it out, and things will get back to normal once we hit Sin City next Sunday in Las Vegas.
And actually, just a short while ago, Kyle Larson's spotter, Tyler Mond, sent out a tweet saying today I made a mistake. I take full responsibility for what happened on the track today. I was more worried about the 22, Joey Logano, and not the 9, Chase Elliott. It was a late call on me. It had nothing to do with Kyle. So right there, Kyle Larson, spotter, Tyler Mon taking full responsibility for the incident, and that's really good on him for owning up to his mistake there. And you definitely don't want to be running into your teammate like that. And like you guys were saying, I expect this situation to get resolved fairly quickly. Probably by the either end of the night, end of tomorrow, they're gonna move on from it and get ready for next weekend's race because it does no one no good to be fighting, getting upset with people over something like this because it's only the second points race of the year and you still have over 30 more races to go. So it's best to push this aside and focus on the big task at hand. And Ben was talking about the drama we saw in the mid to late 2000 between Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. Both of those were number one drivers at Hendrick Motorsports, and sometimes when you have two legendary talents like that, you're going to see them butt heads. And as for Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, as Ben said, I don't think we've gotten to that level yet where we're going to see them having a type of in-team rivalry like we saw between Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. If they start getting together later on in the season multiple times, maybe, but I think that's highly unlikely at the moment because Rick Hendrick, Jeff Gordon, they're going to make sure their drivers are locked and loaded because it's going to be a long trying season, especially with some of the growing pains with the next gen car. So they're going to need to keep their drivers focused, and I expect them to do what's best for their organization so Hendrick Motorsports can keep on winning. And now the strongest Chevrolet today was actually wasn't Kyle Larson or from Hendrick Motorsports, but from Richard Childress Racing. Tyler Reddick led most of the laps. He led more laps today than his entire career in the NASCAR Cup Series. I know sweeping both stages, but with less than 40 laps to go, the left rear tire went down. And oddly enough, William Byron hit him sliding up the track and into Reddick. So 3 races so far in 2022. The exhibition non-points race in the class, we saw the mechanical issues, a car flipping over so easily at the Daytona 500. That was Harrison Burden. And then we had issues with flat tires all weekend and not being able to drive away from the scene of the accident. With some drivers having strong runs like we saw from Tyler Reddick today, but no finish to really show for it, does this mess with a driver's confidence?
Yeah, and also I'll give a call to Daniel Suarez from Trackhouse Racing. He was up there. He could have won this. And Chevy's finished 1, 2, 3, 4. After what we saw at Daytona last week, Chevy's not being up there. Today was a rebound for that brand. And if Tyler Reddick didn't have his accident, I believe he would have won his first career race today. It's it does mess with driver's confidence. You're so close, you can feel it. Like what we saw with Bubba Wallace last Sunday in the Daytona 500. He came so close, and he was frustrated. But to me, Tyler Reddick had a strong car all day long, and it hurts when you were so dominant and then you can't bring home the checkered flag.
Yeah, we saw a lot of drivers spin out, a lot of champions spin out this weekend and have some tough races today. But they're all veterans of the sport. They'll know how to bounce back. For Tyler Reddick in particular, still very early in his Cup Series career, to have a run like he did today, be as dominant as he was, as you said, Kobe, he led more laps in this one race than he had in his entire previous 2 Cup Series seasons. It's got to be devastating for him to come that close to closing the deal and having at the very least, a strong finish, if not winning the race outright today. And to come up short like that after an incident has got to be frustrating. And it does have to take a toll on your confidence. Tyler Reddick is also a NASCAR champion. He doubled down on his Xfinity Series championships. So, I know he's a great young driver, and I'm sure he's going to bounce back. But it might take a couple of races. He might need to go out and have another strong run, maybe not as dominant as he had today, to get over this, and then he can go have his dominant run and hopefully seal the deal and go win a race. If it's any indication, we saw Austin Dillon get up there and finish second as well. I think RCR has some speed this season. Maybe that's down to them improving. Maybe that's down to the parity of a next-gen car. We might talk about that a little bit later on here in this segment. But RCR definitely looks like they're in a position where they could win multiple races this year, and that's something we haven't really been able to say about them since Kevin Harvick's been at the team.
Ben, I think you did a really good job separating the two different types of drivers. You have your champions, your seasoned veterans who've been there, done that. Something like this happens, be like, oh, well, on to the next one because I already have multiple wins, championships in the bag. But younger drivers like Tyler Reddick who haven't reached that point yet, I think for the younger, less experienced drivers in the Cup Series compared to their veteran competitors, I think it could really mess with their mind in certain ways. But if you're Tyler Reddick so far in 2022, you have to be really encouraged because as you remember, he was very strong in the Busch Clash at the LA Coliseum at the beginning of the season, and a lot of people thought his car was so fast he could have potentially won that if it wasn't for the issues that happened in the Clash. And then Daytona's going to be Daytona. With anything that can happen will happen, and then today in Fontana, just like the Busch Clash, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack, but don't have the result to show for it. Yes, definitely some growing pains for Tyler Reddick, but he's still a young driver, has a long NASCAR Cup Series career ahead of him. But I believe once he gets win number one, the wins are going to start coming here and there because RCR has been working really hard in the last 5 years to bring that program back up to where it used to be. And earlier in the race, Chase Elliott hit the wall while leading, but kept going. The old car with the sheet metal might have caused a tire rub immediately, a flat, or an unscheduled trip to pit road. Chase kept going until some internal part broke and caused him to spin. The racing was spread out all over the track with side-by-side action and lots of comers and goers, not what we call slot car racing like we've seen in the last few years. And starting with you, Ben, was this a very encouraging sign of what the fans and drivers have been asking for?
Kobe Lambeth, Adam Lemeries. I'm holding up this shirt again today.
I know where you were going.
And for once,
I know where you were going.
I'm not doing it as a joke.
Nope.
That was
Nope.
the greatest intermediate race I've seen in a very long time. And all credit to NASCAR, all credit to Auto Club Speedway. That was phenomenal. That was awesome. And I'm in a couple of racing group chats here where we watch the race together and discuss everything. And the sentiment was pretty much unanimous. That was absolutely worth watching. That was a fantastic Cup Series race on a track between 1 or 2 miles in length. I said it as soon as the race ended. I think we can now officially say the 550 package was the worst package in the history of packages of a NASCAR Cup Series level. And also, if Auto Club Speedway turns into a short track after that it is going to be an absolute shame because the racetrack, I think, has had its detractors over the years. They say that the 2-mile D-shaped oval doesn't put on great racing, especially the last couple of years we've seen with the slot car racing, like you mentioned, Kobe. It's been a struggle, and it's been a struggle, like you were saying at the start of a show, to so much as stay invested and stay. It's going to sound bad saying this, but I'm just being real, to stay awake watching these Cup Series races. We've been joking that the Xfinity Series is the pinnacle of stock car racing now because drivers are just holding it wide open at these intermediate tracks. Kyle Busch even said after the first test, anybody could go run wide open, and pointed to one of the media members and said, you could probably do it. And we saw, how many Cup champions did we see spin out this weekend between practice and qualifying and the race today? I mean, these are champions of a sport still trying to get this next-gen car figured out. The next-gen is hard to drive. It's not wide open all the way around any track 1.5 miles or greater in length. And that is what the Cup Series absolutely should be. So I think, we can't celebrate too much. It's a brand new car. We're going to have to see how this lays out over multiple races. I don't like the fact that if you get a flat tire, it seems virtually impossible to drive back to the pits. I think that's something that they've got to work on. We do still have some concerns with the tires and other things on this car. It's not perfect yet. It's going to take some time. But for it being only 2 races in, our first true test from next-gen car on an intermediate track, I see this as an absolute win, to borrow a phrase from Avengers Endgame and Bruce Banner and Hulk. This was an absolute win today. I don't know how it could have gone much better.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how do I rate this race? A 10 out of 10. It was awesome. It was incredible. It was dramatic. I mean, you saw teams who normally you don't see in the top 10 up there. Austin Dillon for RCR. Eric Jones was up there all day long for Richard Petty's team. It was incredible. It was awesome to watch it. I gotta give a special shout out to Mark Martin. How cool was it to see that Hall of Famer and former Roush competitor with Clint Boyer and former Roush driver Matt Kenseth with Mike Joy in the broadcast booth. I remember when Mark Martin drove for Roush, when it was called Roush Racing. He was an awesome driver. I hope we see Mark Martin in the booth, later on this year. I gotta say, and we saw fans. They didn't sit down, the last 5 laps. They were standing, and I gotta give NASCAR credit. This package, love it. And why do we have to turn Auto Club Speedway into a short track? It should, a lot of people want to see it kept as a 2-mile oval. It was just awesome to watch all day long.
Well, Adam, it's not a done deal whether or not this is going to become a short track. They announced this weekend that the project is being put on pause because of everything that happened with the pandemic, and unsure what's going to happen on the land itself. So I think that's a good sign right now that we don't have to worry about it becoming a short track quite yet, at least for the next year. But as Ben was saying, it would be quite a shame if it becomes a short track after what we saw. I think there are some other tracks on the schedule that you could definitely turn into a short track. But to be fair, I'm not going to name any tracks specifically. But overall, Fontana definitely put on quite a show. The next gen car, yeah, there's some growing pains like getting a flat tire, can't drive back in the pit, and it was very frustrating and unfair for Christopher Bell to go through what he went through today when he spun out and went like 4 laps down, and he wasn't able to drive the car back to the pits. And I feel like you shouldn't have to go that many laps down over a flat tire when you could just drive back to pits, maybe go just 1 or 2 laps down instead of double the amount of laps that you've lost. But overall, I really think NASCAR is going to figure all of these problems out as the season goes on. Might take several more races, but by the end of the season, I think we're going to have all of that figured out. And so far, the next gen car is really looking like something that's a real winner based on the first race, the non-super speedway race with actually the Clash was the first non-super speedway race, but you guys get what I'm saying. First non-super speedway points race, but
yeah. I got you.
Yeah, just a really great day out in California, and also the level of competition we saw today with Tyler Reddick and Eric Jones running out front, as you mentioned, Adam, for Petty GMS. I don't remember the last time at a non-plate track where we saw the number 43 running up front, leading laps like we saw today. It's definitely been a really long time since we've seen something like that, and we had a lot of parity today. 9 different teams finished inside the top 10, but no teams from Joe Gibbs Racing. Toyota has struggled all race long with overheating issues, so that's something they're going to have to figure out in the next races ahead. And 4 drivers that didn't win at all last year led today. Will we see this level of parity all season long, or do you anticipate the big teams in the Cup Series garage to get ahead as we move on throughout the 2022 season?
To me, I like parity, and we saw Daniel Suarez with Trackhouse Racing. He had a solid finish in the top 10 today. It was just incredible to see. I believe they said 9 different teams finished I believe it was 9 different teams finishing in the top 10. That's incredible. I think this is what the fans wanted, and I can't wait to see what develops for the rest of the year. Next week we go to Las Vegas. We also have, we can't forget about the short tracks, Martinsville, Bristol, and And also, we have action on the dirt at Bristol. So it's going to be interesting to see, how everything develops. But the parity was awesome. Glad to see other teams, besides Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, among others, throw up there all the time. Really good to see different teams competing for the win today.
There's an idea sometimes in spec series that everybody's the same, so you're going to get a high amount of parity there. And usually what happens is the most experienced teams, the most experienced drivers, the most experienced engineers, even if the cars are all the same, they will find a way to pull ahead, whether it's at the start of a year or the end of a year. So I think, this is going to be no different with a next-gen car. It's a brand new car for everybody. We're all still figuring it out. I do think you're going to see the bigger teams, the most experienced teams, maybe pull away with a slight gap by the end of the season. But it might not be as big of a gap as we saw with a Gen 6, a car that, the teams had almost a decade to get used to, despite going through many different packages and everything. But want to highlight some drivers today. I guess we're going to be back here on the cycle of results, maybe pull the top 10 back up here. But Austin Dillon, like we mentioned, RCR, great results for them. Tyler Reddick was obviously up front all race as well until he had his problem. Eric Jones for Petty GMS, a brand new partnership, a new alliance. Great to see that iconic number 43 and iconic number 3 car up there fighting at the front again. Talk about a throwback there. It's been a long time since we saw that. Daniel Suarez with Trackhouse looked like they might be in contention to maybe even steal a win today and get the team and Daniel's first victories together. I'm sure that day is coming for them with how strong they ran today. Look at Daniel Hemrick in 9th for Colleague Racing, a team that, even though they won a race last year in the Cup Series with AJ Allmendinger, still very new to the Cup Series, still new to full-time Cup racing. And look at how strong they're already running. So, you got Kurt Busch and a brand new team with 2311 up there in the top 10 as well. It's so great to see names and teams that we haven't seen in a while up front competing for the win. And I hope that that's something that lasts. I think we'll probably get a little bit more of that at the start of the season than come time for the playoffs. I think by then the teams that are competing for a championship will have been established. But I'm all for seeing new faces up there. I got to say, that's probably the one thing that could have made it a little bit better today. I've got nothing against Kyle Larson. He's a champion of our sport and totally deserved the win and all the success that he has had in the last year or so. But the cherry on top would have been a first-time winner like a Daniel Suarez or somebody that, Eric Jones, a first win for Petty GMS. That would have been cool to see, but I'm sure their days are coming if they keep running like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely gonna be coming one day, and overall today it was just a great race. I give it an A+, and I don't like giving out A+s often with races, but this race had everything, and we had a total of 32 lead changes today, which is almost unheard of at this racetrack. So yeah, so many drivers swapping the lead back and forth, and we didn't even have to do draft. We didn't even have to have that drafting to do that, which was incredible. And I think NASCAR definitely accomplished what they were intending to do with this car, put it back in the driver's hands. As we saw and been talking about, those drivers were really up on the wheel and had their hands full the entire time, so they really had to work after it. So I guess in a way it's like the drivers truly had to earn this one instead of just going full throttle around the racetrack and getting out of the car with a disappointed look on your face. I think a lot of drivers certainly had a lot of smiles today because it was such a competitive race, one of the most competitive races I've seen in a long time in NASCAR at tracks not named Daytona and Talladega.
A thrilling race, a thrilling finish, especially when Suarez was there at the end. A lot going on at Auto Club, and it was just a lot of fun. And I think the fans, especially when Jeff Gluck makes that pole, I think it's going to really rank up there. Before we get to the grid rank, we want to highlight some of the other racers racing around this weekend. Tatiana Calderon, of course, making her debut in the NTT INDYCAR Series. At the same venue over at the St. Pete Street Course, Laura Hayes competed in the Mazda MX-5 Cup. And of course, this upcoming week, the W Series, they're going to be testing at Barcelona for their third season. So be sure to check into our show on Thursday, Women in Motorsports. And then, of course, big congratulations to Miles Rowe, 21-year-old winner of today's USF 2000 race at St. Pete. This is just coming the day after crashing, rebounds with a win. A big congratulations to Miles. Ernie Francis Jr., of course, making his debut in the Indy Lights this weekend as well. And of course, NHRA, Antoine Brown, J.R. Todd, both of them, they got in the show, but they didn't get out of the first round. And of course, each and every week we'll be following them, as well as the Racing Pride ambassadors. None of the ambassadors were racing this weekend, but you can find a link to all three websites in the video description.
And now we're a little more than a month away from the 2022 grid ranking. Week 1 will be released on April 3rd, the first Sunday of April. And right now, Formula E, World Rally Championship, and NASCAR have completed the minimum of 2 events to be scored. IndyCar has another event coming up next month at Texas to be scored. And Formula 1, MotoGP, and Supercars starting up in March, and W Series in May. And we're really going to be in the swing of things. Scott McLaughlin leads the grid rating for the IndyCar Series, and he's led the grid ranking in week 1 twice while in supercars. And if he stays in the top 5 of the rating, he'll be the first driver to switch disciplines and be in the grid rank for both series. And starting with you, Adams, you've known about Scott McLaughlin the longest, been our supercars expert. And as a rookie last year, Scott McLaughlin battled Scott Dixon for the win in the closing laps at Texas Motor Speedway. Does he stand a good chance of winning back-to-back races to kick off the 2022 IndyCar season?
Yep. Well, like I said earlier, last year I believe Scott McLaughlin finished second in one of the 2 races at Texas. He's going to have a lot of momentum going into the race in the Lone Star State. Even though it's novel, Scott McLaughlin will be a contender to win. Do I think he can go back to back? Well, it's a long race. Several fit. But I think if he has a good starting position, really good pit stops throughout the day, we could see Scott McLaughlin go back to back. But there's a lot of other IndyCar drivers as well to really do good on the oval. So it's going to be interesting to see if Scott McLaughlin can go back to back. We'll see after practice and qualifying.
A driver like Scott McLaughlin, I wouldn't put it past him. You saw what he did last year with minimal oval experience, and there's only one spot to improve from there. He did it this week. I see no reason why he can't do it at Texas, even though it is a fairly new discipline for him. With how quickly he's been able to adapt to the IndyCar series and even the ovals as well. If anybody can do it, it's him. And we know he's going to have the car underneath him to do it. Team Penske off to a great start to the season, not just in IndyCar, but in NASCAR as well, with Cindric winning the 500 and the pole today at Auto Clubs. So I think it's certainly worth mentioning because I think it does have a legitimate possibility of happening.
Yeah, I think there's a legit possibility that Scott McLaughlin could win at Texas Motor Speedway, and it was incredible watching what he did last year so early on in the season, being able to do that because he had only had a few open wheel races under his belt at that point, and here he is fighting one of the best drivers that IndyCar has ever seen for a win on a high banked oval in the IndyCar series. And I feel like now, since he has a lot more experience under his belt, he's gonna be competitive on all types of tracks, whether it's the big super speedway at Indianapolis, short ovals at Gateway or Iowa, street course like St. Pete, Long Beach, road courses like Road America, Bar. I think Scott McLaughlin is really developing into an all-around IndyCar driver. I think he could be a threat to win every single time the IndyCar series is on the racetrack. And World Rally Championship won't race again until April, so their top 5 will be in the grid rankings. Sebastian Loeb and Sebastian Ogier are both in the top 5 and will be in the initial ranking as well. However, they won't be racing the full season, so eventually they'll just drop on down the list. And one driver that might be in the grid ranking, Eric Almirola, he's currently the only NASCAR driver with a 100% top 10 finish rate. And no NASCAR driver has 100% top 5 finishes. This time, starting with you, Ben. Does Eric Almirola continue his top his 100% top 10 streak in Las Vegas.
Well, so I got a 50-50 shot at getting this question right? We'll come back and see next week. I don't want to sound like I'm being hard on the guy because I know it's his last season, and I'm pulling for him to have some success this year because he's one of the good guys of our sport. He's been around a while, and I want him to finish strong and hopefully win a race or two this year. But I just don't see it happening. And it's not a knock against Eric Almirola. It's not a knock against Stewart-Haas Racing. It goes back to what we talked about a couple questions ago, just the amount of parity that we saw this weekend and at Daytona and what we're seeing with a next-gen car. There's a reason why he's the only one that has the 100% top 10 rate. There's a reason why nobody has the 100% top 5 rate. This car is still brand new. People are going to have to take some time to figure it out. And I think because of that, you're going to see a lot of different names up there rotating week in and week out as we start the season. So I wouldn't put it past Almirola and Stewart-Haas to continue the streak. But if I had to take a guess, I'm going to say it's not going to happen. We'll see some new names up in the top 10.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Ben. Nice to see Eric Almirola, so far this year to have 100% top 10 runs. Like you're mentioning, it's a 50-50 shot. Yes or no? I'll say I don't think he finishes in the top 10. And also, like you're mentioning, it's really awesome to see, different drivers in the top 10 each week. The parity in NASCAR is there, and a lot of fans are looking. A lot of fans love it. Really cool to see different names, up there, and I think it'll happen throughout the rest of the season. It's going to be interesting to see with this new next gen car how everything develops as we go in to the rest of the year.
Yeah, I actually don't see Eric Almirola continuing his 100% top 10 streak in Las Vegas, as you guys were saying. The parity, everybody figuring out this new car. I think in the next couple of weeks we're gonna see the finish and the results of the race. It's gonna vary from race to race. Yes, we're gonna still see the drivers you expect to be running up front, finishing up front and winning those races. But I think we're gonna see quite a bit surprises like Daniel Hemrick. Daniel Hemrick I believe was a lap down a couple of times today and still came back to finish in the top 10. Even Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was up there in the JTG Doherty Racing Chevrolet up there fighting for the lead, and Eric Jones as well, and Daniel Suarez. It's just really crazy. He did at the start of the season so far, and it's only been a couple of weeks. Can't imagine what we're gonna see as the season progresses. And also some breaking news from the Racetrack Auto Club Speedway. Kyle Larson has cleared tech, so he's officially the winner of the race. So Kyle Larson doesn't have anything to worry about, and we'll move on next week to Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Yep. And now it's time for our grid one shining moment from this fabulous motorsports weekend where we saw IndyCar, NASCAR, and World Rally Championship all competing. So I'll start with you, Joe. What's your grid one shining moment?
For me, my one shining moment has to be Suarez and then 99. Suarez, when he came into the Cup Series, of course, he was sort of rushed up when Paul Edwards retired into the Joe Gibbs Racing number 19. Couple season, replaced by Martin Truex. Goes to Haas Racing, replaced, I believe, by Kurt Busch. Then it just seems like he was with Gaunt Brothers, not having the best ride. Last year with Trackhouse, wasn't exactly there. This year, though, it seems like with that new car, things are turning for him. He is capable of winning races, I believe. And one of the big things is when it comes to Suarez, now with the 99, I feel like he almost feels like he got that sense of confidence that he can go up there and race for the win. He can go up there and compete because he was just a few laps away, and he was holding off the defending champion, Kyle Larson, to try to earn his first win. Didn't get it this weekend. I believe he will the next time.
Yeah, and you also got to give a shout out to Daniel Suarez as well for hanging in there, because that season with Gaunt Brothers Racing, it was a really long, stressful, and trying season for him, because we found out at Homestead that year that he would be losing his ride with Stewart-Haas Racing, and he had no idea until November, when a lot of people typically have everything lined up for next season, and he didn't even have to deal with Gaunt Brothers until only a few weeks before the Daytona 500, and the team was nowhere near ready to run the entire NASCAR Cup Series season. So it was a lot of moving parts happening really fast, and they were not prepared to run that full season. Daniel Suarez, he had a really rough season in the Cup Series. Instead of being competitive, he was just riding around at the back mid pack for much of the season. That was just a really long, stressful experience with him in that number 96 Toyota. But then he got the great opportunity to come at Trackhouse with Justin Marks and Pitbull, building a very competitive program. Been able to do what he did today, in front, fighting for the win late in the race. It just shows you how much Trackhouse has improved their program since they started up, and that's definitely a great thing for Suarez. And now my great one shining moment, I'm going to give it to Miles Rowe for winning the USF 2000 race. That was just incredible because Miles Rowe has had quite a weekend, and it is Black History Month, and Miles Rowe is a young black racer, and he's definitely had quite a path in racing. He's Will Power's protege. Actually, Will Power discovered this young kid and felt like he's good enough to potentially be in the IndyCar Series one day. But while Miles Rowe has a lot of talent, the problem that a lot of young drivers run into, they don't have the funding to compete, and not just to compete, but to compete in a high quality ride. And last year, IndyCar came up with this equality and change program to bring more diversity into the sport, and Miles Rowe was the driver that they picked to start off that program with Force Indy last season. But this year, after Ernie Francis Jr. had a great season in SRX and then Trans Am and Formula Regionals America, Roger Penske decided he wanted Force Indy to move up to the Indy Lights Series. As for USF 2000, they decided not to focus on that. They wanted to invest all in Ernie Francis Jr. at this next level, but they also wanted to make sure Miles Rowe found a ride in USF 2000 so he can continue his education on the road to Indy ladder system. But Miles Rowe does not have that funding, and I mean he does have a budget, but not for a full season. So there's no guarantee that he's actually going to be in contention for the championship this year because of this financial situation. And as Joe mentioned, when he was doing the racer spotlight, Miles Rowe had a really big crash in the first race of the weekend, and the team said, unfortunately, that's going to take up a huge chunk of the limited budget that Miles has, which is just super unfortunate for him. But winning is the next best thing that you can do, and maybe since he won the race earlier today, that'll show sponsors that you should invest in me. I'm a good driver. I can represent your brand well and take you places. And it's going to be interesting to see how this story turns out, because Miles Rowe has the talent to compete for the USF 2000 championship and to potentially move up to Indy Lights the following year, run a couple of years there, and potentially progress to the IndyCar Series. But as you all know, I guess Lewis Hamilton said this best: cash is king.
Well, Kobe, you took my one shining moment that I was planning for tomorrow's show, Grid Live Encore, and I will certainly be talking more about Miles as well as Ernie Francis Jr. And the Indy Lights race, and of course NASCAR Xfinity on that show with Brandon tomorrow. In terms of the one shining moment for today, I never thought I'd say this, but I think I just have to give the one shining moment to NASCAR as a whole. And I've been very critical of the road they've been going down the last couple of years, but like I said earlier in the show, there's very little I can come away from this race weekend complaining about. The biggest problem, despite my issues with the playoff format, despite my issues with the overtime format, as I just talked about on my channel last weekend, the biggest issue with NASCAR, undoubtedly, when it comes to improving the racing product, is the on-track product itself and the quality of the racing that we see week in and week out. And it's no secret that the 550 package has been very, very unpopular over the last few years. It hasn't worked out as it was intended. So NASCAR, with this opportunity, with a brand new generation of car, the next gen, the Gen 7, I guess we can start calling it now that the next gen is the present day gen, whatever you want to call it, it is working, and it is working very, very well. And I'm hopeful that as we get into the next few races, we're going to continue to see racing like we saw today. And, it's very, very exciting to be a NASCAR fan right now in these times. I think the sport is definitely on the path of turning a corner, and you've got to give credit where it's due. NASCAR certainly seems to have hit the nail right on the head with this car, and this package ends, I think we're going to be seeing some really great racing going forward the rest of the season. So all credit to NASCAR where it's due there.
Well, being the Repco Supercars expert here at Grid Network, I'm going to give my Grid 1 shining moment to Scott McLaughlin. It was his third time competing at the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, and I guess people say third time's the charm. Scott McLaughlin had a really successful career in the Repco Supercar Championship. Won 3 titles. And Roger Penske, at the time, was one of the owners. And when Roger said he wanted to move Scott McLaughlin over here to compete in IndyCar, I think people were amazed. But Scott McLaughlin is an all-around racer, and we saw that today. A lot of his fellow supercars competitors and other motorsports personalities in Australia and New Zealand are really happy for him. That he got his first career win. I don't think it's the last win he'll have this year. And also, I'll give a special shout out to Cole Custer for SS Greenlight Racing. The owner of that team is former NASCAR Xfinity driver Bobby Dotter, who was from Chicago. I remember when Bobby Dotter was competing in the Xfinity Series back then, called the Busch Series. So I'm really happy for Cole Custer and his team, and actually his sponsor was the sponsor of the Xfinity race as well. So for me, I'll give two Grid 1 shining moments. One to Scott McLaughlin for his first career win in IndyCar, and Cole Custer for SS Greenlight Racing and owner Bobby Dotter.
A lot of great moments this weekend. Of course, everyone be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network. As mentioned, Ben and Brandon will be on the air tomorrow to recap NASCAR Xfinity and the Indy Lights. I encourage everyone to visit our Patreon, like calling the show, Mark and Robin, invest in the Grid Network. Keep us on the air all year long. If you want to do a one-time contribution, buy me a coffee, link in the video description to both ways of investing in the Grid Network. And of course, links on our website as well at gridranking.com, as well as the link to public.com. $5 in free stock if you use the referral code GridNet. It's the stock market social media homepage. You can make friends, learn about investing in the stock market, and definitely just try to utilize the stock market. And of course, utilize our social media pages as well. Follow the Grid Ranking, Grid History at Grid_History on Twitter. And we're going to be back all week with more programs, as I mentioned. Monday with Grid Life Encore. Then Wednesday, Grid Tonight, Kobe Lambeth, Adam Lemeries. They're going to be discussing about everything going on with Russia, Ukraine, and Formula One. Could we see Mazepin out of a ride? We'll see as the week progresses, and we'll have more updates throughout the week. Thursday, the Women in Motorsports, and then Saturday, Grid Life Prix, the start of the Repco Supercar Series, start of MotoGP, and we have NASCAR. It's going to be a fun weekend. It's all right here on the Grid Network. For Adam Lemeries, Kobe Lamb from the Podium Finish, and Ben Schneider, I'm Joe Sandiego. Thanks for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.